My name is Matt Wilson. I'm an associate professor of geography at the University of Kentucky and an associate in the Center for Geographic Analysis at Harvard. Today I just want to talk to you a little bit about some things that I've been working on more recently. My own background and training is in something called critical GI science. And some of my more recent writing has been looking at some of the histories around the digital map in the 1950s and 60s, as well as looking at kind of debates about hand-drawn cartography in the 1930s and 40s. And through part of that research, I've encountered a number of really interesting, I think, parallel conversations around geographic education between World War I and World War II. And this has sort of led to a kind of a growing side project interest of mine in how we teach human geography in secondary ed. And so today I'm just going to present a few ideas from some of my preliminary research on the kind of cultures around APHG education and what this might mean more generally for the teaching of geography in our discipline. All right, so I'll get started. So in an AAG President's column in September of 2019, David Kaplan encouraged those of us located in institutions of higher education to reevaluate our concerns about advanced placement human geography, both the courses and the exams that are held in high schools, to consider what he calls the, quote, golden opportunity for geography presented by the growth of APHG exams. These concerns that APHG is not as rigorous as the equivalent college course and that APHG courses ensure that entering college students will not take additional courses in geography departments, Kaplan argues are largely unfounded, but worthy of more study and more innovation. Geography departments were simply not taking enough advantage of this growth in APHG exams, according to Kaplan. However, who is taking advantage of this growth, of this, quote, golden opportunity? And on this question, the column by the former AAG president is largely silent. In another article by the AAG that year, the social media and engagement specialist at the AAG, Emily Fichetti, recaps the 2019 APHG reading with nearly 950 readers. Here, she notes that the APHG exam is, quote, one of the fastest growing AP exams, up from around 3,200 exams in 2001 to a remarkable 230,000 plus exams in 2019, a 70-fold increase. Indeed, this growth in APHG exams is often held up as a win for the discipline, and I suppose for the students in those high school courses. But on closer study at my own university, at the University of Kentucky, it would appear that earning a passing score in APHG is actually negatively associated with students' decisions to take other courses in geography during their undergraduate years. In December of 2019, there were around 1,300 undergraduate students at UK that had taken the APHG exam. And of those, only 256, or around 11.28%, were enrolled in or previously took courses in geography. This is a smaller percentage, of course, than the equivalent for the entire undergraduate student body. Of the 22,000 plus undergraduate students in 2019, 5,500 of those, or 24.6%, had taken a course in geography. So in other words, if you have taken a PhD at the University of Kentucky, you are less likely to take other classes in the Department of Geography than students who have not taken a PhD. Golden opportunity indeed. In the aforementioned pieces by Kaplan and Fichetti in 2019, neither College Board nor ETS is discussed. Back of the napkin math should give geographers some sticker shock. At a cost of $95 per exam, College Board collected just over $20 million for the APHG exams in 2021. And it's unclear how much ETS is actually contracted to administer this exam. If we withhold our suspicions of the industrial efforts to commodify these access points to institutions of higher education, and specifically the monumental way that geography is introduced to high school students, how might we understand the advancement of geographical perspectives and inquiries? But first, a note borrowed from another scholar that underscores what is at stake. Quote, AP, Advanced Placement, and Advanced Placement Program are registered trademarks of the College Board, which is not involved in the production of and does not endorse this commentary, end quote. Indeed, the advancement of human geography has become a trademark. And while I was contracted by ETS to read APHG exams in the summer of 2018, my comments today are my own and are not the positions of College Board nor of ETS. So in the time that remains, I intend to highlight some of the areas of further inquiry into APHG, not necessarily to deflate this effort, but rather to illustrate what a fixation on APHG looks like for the teaching of geography and why those of us in higher education need to pay greater attention. The origin stories of the APHG exam center on the work of a man named James Moran, beginning in the mid-1960s and culminating in the late 1990s. Moran was a high school teacher and past president of the National Council for Geographic Education, and he served as the coordinator of the Geographic Education National Improvement Project. Moran is said to have convinced College Board of the financial feasibility of the new AP offering, all while enrolling the support of academic geographers by connecting the future of the discipline to expanded visibility in secondary education. NCGE, AAG, and even the National Geographic Society all offered a loan to College Board to support course development and creation of the exam, which was paid back over the first 5 years of exam fees. The goal of the APHG course remains largely unaltered. Quote, for students to become more geoliterate, more engaged in contemporary global issues, and more informed about multicultural viewpoints, end quote. And they're using technologies, they're thinking critically, they're applying concepts and solving problems. The course was to be distinguished from world regional geography, which many states in the US have already required of middle school students. A course outline was developed with specific geographic skills and units of study, and an entire infrastructure was created by ETS and College Board to create, audit, administer, and evaluate these high school courses and exams. This included an exam template with multiple choice questions selected across units of study and free response questions, or what's called FRQs. These 3 questions that are tightly controlled and developed with some secrecy are then read, not graded, at a week-long event called The Reading, where participants act as chief reader, table leaders, and question leaders. Those who are selected as readers are mostly high school teachers who teach the course and a smaller contingent of professors and graduate students who have some experience in human geography. So it's the reading that I'd like to discuss in my remaining time. As an event, there is of course a structure and a process by which individuals are assembled with stacks of student writing that are eventually given a score. I applied for and I was hired as a reader for the APHG exams in 2018, and I spent 7 days and evenings with other readers and hundreds of exams. There are 2 primary frustrations that I experienced at the reading that I discussed with other readers during my week. First, the realization that the substance of the written portion of the exam was largely inconsequential to assessing a student's grasp of university-level human geography. And second, the realization that many of those in charge of the APHG classroom were unprepared by their own admission as geographers, and in sometimes some of the worst representatives of anti-intellectualism in the discipline. These 2 frustrations were of differing qualities during the week. The written exam rubrics and the calibration that was required reinforced 2 primary types of scores: identification and description. More nebulous was further instruction that we as readers needed to know that, quote, student got it. Oftentimes this meant that the student was able to tell a story using an idea or concept. However, the story could actually be wrong or even offensive to a lesser degree, and yet the student would still be given the point because they understood how to use the idea in a story. I brought this up to others at the work break of readers and was told with shrugged shoulders that the APHG exam has moved away from content towards theory. This perception that the content or the substance of the written portion of the exam mattered less was made further complicated by the mechanics of scoring. There was some discussion at my table about the importance that students who write or draw something on the answer page should properly receive a 0 score. Leaving the page blank would result in a dash score. Some instructors felt that a dash would impact the reader's scoring across the entire exam. Confused about how this mattered, I asked for clarification from the table leader, and I was curious about how students who drew pictures or wrote messages to the reader or simply had a slip of their pen would be scored as a 0, which to me seemed, and to others, like a misuse of our ability as readers to discern answers from non-answers. The table learned that a dash and a 0 was more important to the reporting for College Board. A dash would allow College Board to remove the exam's answer from the statistical average of the question across the entire group of students, while a 0 would be figured in the average scores for the exam. However, including drawings and other messages and marginalia would also allow College Board to report a kind of rigorousness to the answer and its scoring that quite simply didn't exist, and perhaps this was by design. These and other experiences left me wondering how these kinds of ideas about the dash and the 0 would travel back to APHG classrooms, where the pressure may be applied to students to write something, anything, in the hopes of a pitiful point. Certainly, this strategy allows College Board to report more attempts at an answer, and it underscores the possibility of actually failing a written exam answer. This might counter the perception that APHG exams are among the easier exams, sometimes referred to as AP Light, that could be taken during a freshman year of high school in preparation for more difficult exams in later years. Perhaps then, just as APHG exams are considered an onboarding of future AP customer students, the assignment of instructors to APHG is also seen to be more flexible within school districts. The tilting of the exams and the course content towards theory from content allows instructors to teach principles in human geography, or simply put, ideas, without actually knowing or requiring to know how these ideas emerge from a knowledge of the world, or even care for it. The balance between knowing something about the world and worlding something about one's knowledge is, of course, a tricky one, and perhaps a struggle that has defined at least a century of thought in geographic education. Are we about knowing lists of things about the world, or are we about using our knowledge of the world to sort of think in more creative and relational ways about that? What results, I think, is a gross reappropriation of the core inquiries in the discipline, leaving teachers and readers and students with a sense that geography is perhaps just nothing new. Indeed, I think it's the gap between the dash and the 0 that reveals the perniciousness of the APHG approach. It reveals the system of rewards from the student to the classroom, to the instructor and school district, to state educational boards and their lobbyists from ETS and their largest client, College Board. I should underline that this is not meant to be a blanket indictment of the individual high school educators, nor the readers of the APHG course content, both of which are likely motivated by an interest in geography and the advancement of geographic education in our high schools. Pictured here is our own APHG teacher, Whitney Walker of Lafayette High School in Lexington, Kentucky, in her classroom during the pandemic. Instead, this is a call to better understand how the structural forces of College Board and ETS are actually used to and serve to pressure and package all of these motivations from teachers and readers towards further capture of the share of the college prep gold rush, to the tune of $20+ million per year. So I conclude here with much of the same advice that Sarah Bednarz offered in 2016 on the 15th year of the APHG exams. She writes, urging geographers to be in contact with APHG teachers and their students, and she continues to geography professors, quote, "Some are your future geography majors. Adopt them, nurture them, use them as your pipeline to your majors, engage your senior majors to mentor the AP students. You will find that you can learn a lot about innovative teaching from interacting with APHG teachers, and they can hone their geographic perspective by talking with you." And I'll end there. Thank you very much.